From the KTXD studios in Addison, this is the Texas Daily. With your host, Jeff Brady.
Good evening. It's Thursday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Welcome to the Texas Daily. I'm your host, Jeff Brady, and coming up on the show tonight, an Olympic athlete who made history, now accused of murder. We'll have that story. Plus, we'll talk to former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum. And later, we have a very special guest in studio. We're excited. Do you remember the original play-by-play voice of the Texas Rangers? Bill Mercer is here tonight. I'll bet he has a ton of stories to share. We can't wait to get him in here on set. And joining us tonight, Iola and Scott. Thanks, guys, for coming in.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
It's always a jam, but we have too much to talk about.
And now more of the Texas Daily, only on KTXD-TV.
Hi, Jeff Brady back with the Texas Daily, and as you can see, I've aged quite a bit in the last 2-minute commercial break.
And grew a beard.
I grew a beard too. Actually, as you can see down there, John Sparks, who they were kind enough to let me sit in because I want to introduce the next guest that we have, is a dear friend of mine. Before there was an Eric Nadel and a late Mark Holtz, there was Bill Mercer. Before there was a Vern Lundquist and a Brad Sham with the Dallas Cowboys, there was Bill Mercer, who did the play-by-play of the Ice Bowl game and at the first Super Bowl victory when Roger Dodger and Coach Landy brought us. And then he also had another side to his career, and I'm going to ask Bill if you would go ahead and give us your claim to fame. Listen, folks, listen up.
Welcome to World Class Championship Wrestling from the Sportatorium in beautiful downtown Dallas. I'm Bill Mercer.
I love it.
And he is
I'm
Bill
13
Mercer.
years old again.
I love it. That is sensational. Oh, wow.
Bill,
Yes.
a
I don't
storied
know how I
career.
remembered all that.
Tell us about the Sportatorium. This came up on Texas Daily that I was participating in a few weeks
About
ago.
Sportatorium?
Yes, and so I thought,
What a dump.
golly. Well, tell us about the Sportatorium. What was the Sportatorium like? What did you do there? How did you get into this? Tell us about the crowd, the folks that you got to. I mean, we're talking about preventing violence, domestic violence, but you've spent your career in the middle of violence in the ring.
I did, and I tried to be very quick because those guys were big.
Yeah.
The old Sportatorium burned at the time of the Texas State Centennial, and then they built this one later on, and the thing was just, you know, aluminum panels and nothing to protect it from the hot and cold. It was the hottest place in Dallas in the summer, and I used to sweat like and then it was freezing cold. The rats and mice enjoyed it. The restrooms were terrible. When Channel 39 was doing the World Class Championship Wrestling, they all got in trucks and went back to the station to go to the bathroom.
That bad.
and eat, and then they never went to the bathroom again until the show was over.
Sounds like the cruise ship.
Yeah, but
it was
it was kind of like a
troubles,
cruise ship. And Fritz von Erich was the captain. You can understand why it was a dump.
Wow.
Well, now you mentioned Fritz von Erich. I think of Wahoo McDaniel. I think
Oh,
of Killer Cox. All these
And how about
wrestlers.
this guy?
What do you
The great
have there?
Destroyer, right there. This is an original.
That's an
The
original.
Destroyer. You won't remember him, but he took this off one time after a bout because he was leaving the area and said, "Here, remember me. This will be famous, and you'll make a fortune on it someday." I don't know, a couple bucks, I guess. He was a great guy, though.
There is maybe a mystique, maybe not a mystique about wrestling, but are these guys for real?
Sure. Well, they were. Those guys were for real. My dear friend Killer Carl Cox died last year, and he could turn that Sportatorium inside out by just walking up and looking. They had this ability to be great, you know, heroes or great villains. And it was better. They loved being villains more than heroes. The Von Erichs were the heroes, of course, and everybody gave way to them. But you pick out one, Great Kabuki. Fritz von Erich was a villain starting out, and then he had kids and became a hero. It was a business that I guess you had to be a certain kind of person to get into it because it was not easy. It was rough. It was tough. People hit each other. Johnny Valentine and I had an interview one day, and I said, "You and Fritz von Erich had a lot of bouts, and it looked like it was a real slugfest." He said, "Hell, I didn't want anybody just to slap me. I wanted them to hit me."
Wow.
And we hit each other, bang, bang, you know. So there were a lot of guys it went the limit to make it really look good.
Now, you helped it make it look good, too. And I believe,
Thank you.
didn't you telecast the first wrestling match on television? Or did I
In the
understand?
Guinness Book
no.
of World Records or something like that?
No, I don't think. No, it was going on down here before I came.
Really?
I came down from my hometown in Oklahoma in 1953. I had done wrestling in Muskogee, Oklahoma on radio.
Wrestling?
Yeah, wrestling. And when they told me I had to do it, I said, I've never seen it. I don't know it. He said, oh, yeah, you can do football and that stuff. Just go down there. So I talked to a couple of the wrestlers. Huh?
What year?
51?
51.
Wow.
Yeah, 51.
So over half a century ago.
Yeah, you weren't born, were you?
I was 4 years old.
I know, he was a youngster when he came to work. So I went out and discussed this with the wrestlers, and they showed me the holes gingerly. I made notes and started doing radio. And in '53, I was doing all the stuff up there, and a friend of mine was at KRLD, and Wilson Shelley said, I've got to find a wrestling announcer. And my friend said, I know the world's greatest. I said, that was a little overdone. But I came down, auditioned, and the rest is, as they say, something.
Well,
Well, he also was you're wearing your mean green blazer
Yeah,
today.
I was,
One of our crew members came up and said, you
did.
were my professor at
I was.
UNT. So
I was.
there
I've
was
been
more to
meeting
you
a lot
than
of-
just...
There's a lot of them in this area.
Yeah, I met one yesterday, a lady that she took my course so she could chase her boyfriend and finally married him. Since she never did
And this
sports.
course was?
Broadcast sports, play-by-play.
Broadcast sports, play-by-play.
Yeah, which really was my favorite thing.
Oh, yeah.
Who was your, as a kid growing up, who was your mentor from play-by-play? I mean, you were the first guy to do Rangers,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I liked Bill Stern because of the drama, Gordon McNamee, and then I listened to Red Barber, and he was a lot younger then.
Right.
And of course Vin Scully,
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Who's
I-
still doing Dodger games.
who's still 80s.
Unbelievable.
Amazing.
Isn't that something, John?
it's
Still, I mean,
amazing.
my
Still.
gosh.
Yeah,
And he's 80-something. Can I say how old you are?
87.
87
Wow.
years old. Isn't
Yeah.
that pretty sharp?
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Bill was honored up at Denton at Apache Stadium. They named the press room after him in the new stadium up there.
I don't
Oh,
get
wow.
money, so they named the man.
But quickly, I want to, Bill, tell us, give us a favorite story of yours from the wrestling ring and the sportatorium. Tell me about one of the funniest things
Well,
that
I
happened
can't
to you.
tell you the what I told you.
I understand.
Yeah. Moondog Mayne was a crazy guy, and he believed that his thing was water. Everything was water. So we went out to one of those early old down slide things, where the water slide. And I was dressed kind of like this. I thought nobody told me what was going to happen, and I was going to interview him about 1 minute. Okay, he was going to interview him about water. He reached up and pulled me in, fully clothed, and then pulled me, and we slid down this darn thing. And that was bad enough, but then they made me go down 2 other times so they could move the cameras around and get the shot of my going by. It was always something funny.
Right.
What are you most proud of looking back at your career?
Baseball. Love baseball. The Ice Bowl. I love the Cowboys because I was in the best era, I think. And the Ice Bowl game is, I still get requests for it. And then the Super Bowl with Vern Lundquist, and he moved on to follow me. Those are big, and of course North Texas was my anchor for a long time. Those are my great ones. I was fortunate, really lucky, and had a little talent.
As you and Scott both know, I could talk baseball till the cows come
Oh,
home.
right.
Will you come back again sometime on the daily and let's talk a little baseball?
I'm
or
going to
something
pay my
else?
fare back in Durham. I'll be back in
hear
April.
that?
I'll be back in April.
In April.
If you want me to come back early in April.
Okay.
But Drysdale was my other son, or my other
Don
guy.
Drysdale,
He
the
was a
Dodgers.
wonderful guy. We had a
Right.
wonderful time. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
being
Bill.
here.
Good to see this young
Yeah,
guy.
it's so good to see you again.
Yeah.
Well, Mercer, and we'll be back with
Sparky
more of the
down there.
Texas Daily in just a minute.
That's what I call him, too, Sparky.
Sparky. Cats call you Sparky.
Sparky.
Look at that.
Yeah.
What a treat to have Bill Mercer here. You know,
Yes,
that
that
guy,
was
I mean,
special.
there's so much more that he could speak to regarding
Right.
the Cowboys and
And
the
he
Rangers.
will in April when he joins
And
us
he-
again.
yes, that's right. We're
He
gonna hold him
promises
to that.
come. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
And the kids that are watching the Cowboys now, the 20s, the 30s, even the 40s now, they have no idea who this. I mean, it was over 40 years ago that
Yeah.
the Rangers came to town.
Wow.
And so, I mean, it's great stuff. And he's just one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. He's just a great guy.
And his alter ego, the Destroyer. And we want to have you come back in April, or perhaps when
Talk
the
about
Rangers.
baseball.
Baseball season.
Right,
Absolutely.
right.
I have trouble talking with this.
Now, what's the history of the mask again?
Well, the Destroyer was a pretty famous wrestler, and he'd come into Dallas in the NWA and all that, and he was leaving the NWA, going somewhere else, and he said, after the bout, he came in and said, "Hey, Bill, take my mask." So he took it off and handed it to him.
Gave
and
it
said,
to you?
Yeah, it still has the sweat in there. And he said, "It'll be famous someday."
Yeah.
But it isn't.
Well, put that thing up on Craigslist. No telling what you'd get.
That's
for it,
right.
Yeah, a couple of bucks, I bet.
Yeah, a couple
I
bucks
think
anyway.
so.
Of course, wrestling
All right.
fans might spend the money on it.
Yeah, I think they would.
Okay, stick around. We're back with more right after this.